Thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. I know there's a lot going on and I appreciate your time while we talk about surveys and automation. So the webinar is going to dive a bit into how we build the surveys, but it's going to focus more on how to effectively collect, manage, and store the important information that you gather through the surveys, and how to use that information to store it within the contacts record, set up some automation triggers, and how to make use of the information that you collect through the surveys. Surveys are a really exciting tool because you get to learn the customer's feedback and make use of that and take actionable items within your company and your team to learn that and move forward with that information. My name is Madison Potter. I'm on the marketing team over here at GreenRope, and I'm excited to walk you through this webinar today about how to streamline your surveys and set up those automation triggers to really capture the information and measure the engagement around your surveys that you create and build. The overview of what we're going to be talking about is just the different ways you can use the surveys, how to structure the survey within your account to minimize the information that you're asking from your clients, especially when it's connected to the CRM. You'll see that you don't have to always ask for as much information as you think, because a lot of that information can either update the contact record or already be inside that contact record. We'll talk about some survey customization options that you can use. And so really highlighting that customer experience through survey logic and giving them specialized content based on their responses to your questions that you ask them. Then we'll dive into the system and build and send your survey out through GreenRope or a different survey that you're using. Then we'll talk a bit about the automation options and the tracking that you can see with the surveys. And then if you do have any questions, please feel free to add them into the question box or even into the chat option. And that way we can get to all your questions at the end and dive into them a bit more deeper for your specific survey that you're building. So firstly, why do we use surveys? What is the main goal of the survey? Like we mentioned a bit earlier, you really want to collect information from either your leads, your clients, your team members. You can use surveys for building out tests that your contacts can go through, like scoring those surveys and making them more into quizzes. There's so many options that go into why you want to use a survey. But overall, companies use surveys to gain a deeper understanding of their customers' needs and desires. So what are you asking them and what are you actually going to use with that information once they take the time out of their day to respond to your survey? So you want to make sure that every question that you're asking, you can actually have an actionable item that's going to come from that response, and really diving deeper into understanding what the customer's needs and desires are and what are their perspectives regarding the questions that you're asking. So the different points of a survey include, firstly, understanding the goal of your survey. So what are you looking to achieve from the survey that you're creating? Some examples can be, customer feedback. Did you just have a support question that you wanted to see how the support went? Your internal team consensus. So getting a team vote on anything that you're working on and seeing where their views are. You can use surveys to segment your leads based on their answers to the questions or any specific items that they want. You can segment the leads that way. And then, like we said, you can also use surveys to create tests or quizzes, especially if you're using an LMS, which is our learning management system. You can attach a survey at the end of each module. So when they go through the module that you've created, the course that you've created, they can fill out a survey as a test. You can score them, and then you can approve them to move on to the next module. So understanding what you're looking to achieve from the survey is going to really outline the question that you're wanting to ask and kind of the automation that you're going to set up based on that. The second is how are you going to apply that data? So once you've collected that data and information, where are you going to store it within the contacts record? How are you going to use that information to kind of make informed decisions and make sure that you're only collecting the information that you really need to move forward with whatever you're looking for as the goal of the survey? Some really great places you can store them would be into user-defined fields. So this is directly connected to the contacts record. So if a contact fills out the survey and updates the questions based on their responses, you can then have that information be stored right within the contact record. And so that would be on an individual basis. You can kind of log into the CRM activities and see all the survey responses, especially if, for example, they're a new lead or a new client coming into the system for you. You can have the survey asking them about their certain preferences, their service offerings, or anything that they want. And you can connect that to the contact record so your entire team can see their results. Otherwise, within the survey section, I'll show you, we do have a results page. And this helps you generate the overall responses for your surveys that have come through. So you can see either on an individual section, you can see the results, otherwise you can see a full report of all the respondents and how they've interacted with your survey. And then third, the resulting decisions. And this would be, what automations are you wanting to set up if a lead or a contact has filled out a certain option? Some examples for this would be, move them in between groups. You can segment them that way. You can trigger workflows, which any automation that you want to kind of send a follow-up or assign a certain value or conversion code. So workflows are really important as they are the hub of the automation. And then again, you can also send a customized content to them. And just thinking about these three, what are the goals of the survey? How are you wanting to apply the data? And then what are the automations or results that you want to make decisions based off of? So with that in mind, we're going to talk about your account preparation. So what are a couple items that you need to do within your GreenUp account before you kind of launch the survey and send it out? Firstly, what we're going to talk about is going to be the workflows for the automation. Like we said, you can do a lot of items related to the workflows. And so anytime you see the word workflow, think of any automation that you want to happen. Do you want to update a contact record, send yourself a notification, assign a follow-up activity for anyone in your team to reach out to them? So setting up those decisions on what you want to happen would be first within the workflows. Second, we would go ahead and create the user fields that we want to store this information within. So within the user fields, these are connected to the contacts record. When they fill out a specific response to a survey, you'll update these user fields and store them connected to the contact if they are in your account. And then third, what you'll set up triggers within the user fields for the desired responses. I'll walk you through that, but essentially what it does, if your user field updates to a desired response, you will then trigger the workflow for the automation to happen. So those are the three things that you want to kind of set up before you dive into the survey and start sending everything out. So firstly, within the workflows, there are other videos that kind of dive deeper into these, but this is just a high-level overview of kind of how the workflow manager would work for your surveys. So the workflow manager was in the drop-down of the automation drop-down. Select workflow manager. This is what is the value that you want to happen, or the action that happens from the contact that you want to trigger this automation for. Like we said, workflows are the hub of the automation, and this will trigger throughout the account. So even though you're creating them now for the survey, you can always have this trigger in many other ways throughout the account. And so a helpful way to think about workflows is the goal of the survey, and what are you wanting to happen once they complete your survey or once they have selected a specific response from your questions. Within the workflow, you would create a name associated with it, It's usually a simple descriptive name. In this case, it's going to be unsatisfied service follow-up. You can add any notes, which would be for your team to understand what this workflow was created for. And that way, when you are connecting this workflow to the survey, you can remember what are the different options that this is associated with. The different types of workflow options that you can create include a follow-up activity. So you can notify yourself or someone on your team to reach out to this person. Or it could also create a CRM activity to follow up with the contact via email, SMS, phone call, however you wanted to touch base with that person, you can set that up here. Next, you can also do any of the sending actions. So sending actions would be to send the respondent any item of value that you wanted to then send them through the workflow. So this can be emails, SMSs, you can direct them to a thank you URL or send them anything from the workflow once it is triggered. The trigger actions within the workflow are associated with moving the contacts and starting them on something new. So you can trigger them to start on a drip campaign that you have set up, which is a set of sequence of emails within a group. You can also start, pause, or stop a contact on a specific journey that you have set up. So the journeys are a bit more of the customization of the path that you want to send the client down, where the drip campaigns are more of a structured set of emails to send out. And then modify the contact record as well within the workflows. So this would be where you change the group assignments. You can update any of those user fields within the contact record. And you can also move them down the sales funnel through triggering a workflow. So those are just the high level options of what you could do within a workflow. There are more details in there that you can dive into or let our team know, and we can show you a bit more, but those are the 4 main types of how you would use a workflow for your automation. Once you've created the workflows, you would now want to create the user fields. These user fields are within the contacts dropdown, and the user fields are created as a storage of this data within the survey that's going to be connected to the contacts record. So when the contacts fill out a specific answer or value or anything within the survey, you can now update this field that you would create and store it in the record. And then based on those changes in these user fields, that's when you would trigger the workflows that we previously talked about. Within the contact visibility section, this is where you will manage these fields and kind of how they are viewed within the contacts record. What I've seen a lot is when, for example, you would have a new cluster and you would add all the fields that you want to add and kind of structure them so when you log into the CRM data, you can see a list of all the options and fields associated with the survey. So the visibility section is basically just to adjust how you want these fields to display inside the contacts record. There are more videos within the help section of your account, and we're happy to help you walk through it, but just understand that the visibility is just kind of structuring these fields. So within the user field that you create, you would also define a name. The name would be a little description of kind of the field, how you want it to display in the contacts record. Every user field then does have a description that you could have. And this is again for your team view, so you can all make sure you understand what the field was initially intended to be for. The types here that you can select, these are correlating to the options that you can build within the survey itself. So the select one would be a multiple choice, like a drop-down option, just like the type you see here, where they can have a drop-down and select the most relevant option. The select multiple will be a multiple checkbox where they can check different options associated with, select all that apply kind of questions. The short text would be an open, just a short option like you see here with the name field text. It's got a limited character space. The open text would be more of this note section here, which is a little bigger and has a broader character range for your contacts to give you more details and kind of explain a bit more information. Then you have a few other options: trend data, integer, as well as date fields associated with the types. I would select it to be sharing across all groups, just in case you're sending a survey out and they're not associated with your individual group. That way you can access this user field throughout your account. Since you are sending surveys, I would select it to be a contacts only. The visibility section, this will happen when you want it to show on the contacts view page. If you want this survey result or this response to this user field to show, you would change the dashboard calendar to yes. That way, when you see the contacts view, the list of contacts, it'll show this information here. Then you have the options. These would be the different types that would show within the field. So excellent, great, just okay, poor, or terrible would be the different levels of services rendered, received from the client. And then giving certain people access to edit or change this permissions would be here within the group member or the shared access users. So once you see this field, you'll now see it within the drop-down options along the left. In this case, we have created the user ID, which is the level of services received. And you can see now you'll have this plus add trigger button that gets displayed below. Once you click on the add trigger option, this is where you would set up that workflow that you previously created to now trigger. So in this case, if the value changes from anything in the account, so if it's blank, if it's anything else, and it changes to terrible, we can then activate our unsatisfied services follow-up workflow that we just created. So structuring the survey within GreenRope, this is going to be just building out the survey and what to kind of expect when you're looking into your account. We're going to dive into the system and we're going to talk about the structuring of how it is displayed. We'll go into adding customized placeholders to kind of add that connection throughout the account. Question logic, so moving the contact to different questions based on their previous responses. You can also score the questions and give your survey a range of, customizing it that way. We'll walk through that in the system. Adding a custom thank you URL based on the scores that they got. And then triggering the follow-ups throughout the survey as well, based on their information. So let's go into GreenRope here. This is my test account. You'll find the surveys within the Communicate Survey section. Within this page, you'll see it's divided into two sections. The survey questions will be along the bottom here. This is where you'll create any of the questions that you are building, and then you can house them into folders in both the surveys as well as the survey questions. So an example of a survey question would be here. If you want to update the CRM with the answer, this is going to be those user fields. You can select yes, and you can identify the field that you want to update. So the service preference here, and then you'll see the level of service received is the option that we created. If you're wanting to score the questions, you can give it a value that you can then use as a test or use to customize it further. Once the survey is completed, you can show the results to your respondents by selecting yes, or you can just kind of keep it anonymous and say, thank you for taking my survey, and leave it at that. The question code is going to be just a description of kind of what you want to show as the question when you're building it on the internal side. Here are the question types, and these are relating to those user fields that we have created. You would have the actual question of the survey that you are wanting the clients to see or the respondents to see. And then the answers that you have, you can make it available here. So for example, in this case, if they're very satisfied with the webinar, and they select that answer, you will give them 5 points. If they're okay, 0, and if they're not satisfied, it would be negative points. So let's say they're not satisfied. What we'll do here is now we can add a trigger action and then workflow that we just created to be for the follow-up for this contact. You would trigger the action here. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom here, you can also add any survey responders to a specific group and kind of segment them this way. And so if they do take your survey and they answer this response, you can move them into a different group. And then you can also assign a workflow to all of the respondents above. So these are individual questions that you can score and assign workflows. Otherwise, you can do it on a per question basis. Along the right here, you would save the question. You can reset it to the last save option. You can clear all the responses. So let's say you're testing your survey and you want to then send it out. You can clear the responses before you send it out, and then delete the question and close the window. Once you've built out your survey questions within the question box, the box right above it is where you'd build your actual survey itself. The reason why they're separated this way is so you don't have to recreate questions every time you're building a survey. The surveys here, you can add it into folders, which would be this option here, but basically it has the surveys as a drop-down option within the folder. And it just helps with the organization of the surveys. You can also edit any of the folder names here as well. So let's say we go into an example survey that we have created. The survey name is what you would name the survey for the internal team. You can select one of the design options. You can have a custom page if you're wanting it to relate to your website. You can use the group settings if you have that set up. The group settings would be within this gear icon here. Otherwise, if you click on this section here, you can also add any of the HTML into this page for the more detailed adjustments. You would select a font as well as a header that you want to send from here. You can add the pictures, and you can also add any placeholders into the header. The thing with the placeholders, you will notice it's not going to be directed for the contact itself. This is because it's not sending it directly to that contact just yet. You are building a survey itself, a standalone survey. So if you're wanting to customize the placeholders for the first name, second name, the last name, you would probably do that within an email. And then you would add the survey link into there, which we'll go into next. But the links here would be based on other learning courses or any other information within the system here that you can see. So if they've completed they read any of your articles, if you're relating to that. So information that's stored in the system, you can pull into here. And that would be within the merge. Then you can add any pictures or videos to kind of explain a bit more. If you scroll down, this is where all the questions will be. Page breaks are these orange sections here where you can kind of have one question and then they have to go to the next page to onto the next question. And this is really popular to kind of keep it simple. And so they kind of move from one question to the next without seeing a long list of questions. When you add the page break, it does tell them, how far they have to go before they complete the survey. These questions right here are added right from here by clicking on the green icons to add it over into the question section. And then what you'll do is you'll add a page break, and you can move these throughout the account and section them here. As you can see, this survey customer satisfaction does have an added logic. So if you add the logic here, you can have multiple logics connected to each question. So what that means is customer satisfaction, if the answer is not satisfied, then you can jump to a specific question, which would be 3, 4, around here. So let's say if they're not satisfied, we'll jump to question 4. Or we can also insert a specific question from the left box. So you can either move them throughout here, or you can just insert a new question from the logic. You can also just delete the logic rules from here as well. And so logic rules just help you streamline the survey to only ask the questions that you are wanting them to know, or just to dive deeper into why they're not satisfied. You know, you can send them a question with a short answer text, so it can they can give you more details about their experience and why they're not satisfied. So this is a pretty cool way to kind of dive deeper into their specific answer, or skip the ones that don't really relate to them. Continue scrolling down here, you'll see more designs, and this is going to be based on the footer of the email mostly. This would be, thank you for taking my survey. You can have your website logo here. You can again add any videos, placeholders, access the source code from here as well. Once the survey has been completed, this is where you can say, thank you for completing my survey, your score, and if you add a score placeholder, it's going to pull the points from them and display it for there, right here within the placeholder. So that's a pretty cool option that you could do here. Otherwise, you can also direct them to a custom URL or just a regular URL page that you say, thank you, here's to learn more, here's the next steps, direct them to a URL once they've completed your survey. If you scroll further, you'll see here that you can customize a little further. So if their scores have a specific range from 15 to 30, you can send a custom message. You can direct them to a different URL if they fall within this scoring range. You can activate any of your workflows. And you can also enter the score that they received into a user field that you have created previously. So if you want to have a field inside the contacts record that said they got an 89% on your test, you would add the field and then connect it here. If you want to add more scoring actions, you can just add this option, which will bring up this section again to add more customization here. Before we dive back into the PowerPoint, I just wanted to show you, this is the link to your survey here. If you click on this question mark icon, you will see that you also have an iframe. And this way you can embed this link into actually embed the whole survey into your website landing page. So if you wanted to build a landing page and embed the survey into the landing page, you can do that from here as well. And then once all the survey results have come in, you'll see all the results from the respondents here. And this will be on an overall where you can print the results or refresh them here. You can also filter based on when the contact was created or modified or any specific options. Then you can click to view the individual responses here. Along the bottom, you'll see all of the scored responses that have happened, and you can access their CRM record by going right through this section. You can also export the results into CSV or Excel file from here. So once you've built out the survey and saved all the options of what we talked about, we can go ahead and start sending the survey out to your clients, contacts, and leads. There is another webinar that dives deeper into each aspect of the survey, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end as well. So to find that survey link, like I showed you earlier, you'll go into the Communicate dropdown and select Surveys. You will specify your survey from the left box. Within the survey, scroll all the way down to the bottom where you'll get the anonymous link. This link is to send to your clients and leads, and it'll come back anonymous. Otherwise, if they are in your system, there's a potential that it could actually just get added to their record, and it's most likely that it's going to do that. If they're not in your system, it's going to show that it is just an anonymous contact. Then you'll see there's the iframe option here as well. What you could do with that link, you can go into the communicate email section. You can use any of the templates from here, and you can create a button. So the button would be here within the toolbox. Once you create the button, you insert that link into the URL, and you'll give it a title. The next option, if you want it to not be anonymous and you wanted to directly connect it to the contact, would be to embed it through the survey placeholder. So the survey placeholder works very similar to the button, but it directly connects it to the contact. Something to note about the survey placeholder is that it's not going to send or work unless you send the actual email. So if you're viewing the email within the preview section, it's not going to open up the survey because it's not populating that placeholder and connecting it to a contact. So you physically have to send the broadcast or send it to the specific contact for that placeholder to add the connection and populate in their accounts. So this is probably the best way to go if you want to ensure that all the information is going to be connected to your specific record. So once you've sent the survey out, there's a few ways that you can do the follow-ups and the automation for this. A really great way that I often use would be within the link library. So all of your links that are sent throughout the system are stored in this link library. Anything that you send through your emails or personal emails, this is a good way for you to find them and associate any value points, trigger workflows, and see the engagement behind those links. So if you click into the link library, you'll see that the placeholders are going to be sent here because they are a link as well. You can then assign specific points towards each different link that you're working on. And then you can assign an automatic action. So the action is usually including, adding or removing them from a specific group, or activating a workflow, which is any other automation that you want to work from. If you don't see the link here, you can always add a new tracking link and then copy paste that survey link to be tracked. This is how you'd add the survey link. You can then associate any points, add or remove them from a group, and then activate any workflow once they have clicked on that link. So a few best practices. When you are thinking about the survey design, think about firstly the main goal of the survey. What are you trying to get out of the survey? And then remove any of the irrelevant information that just may make the survey longer. Think about how you want to apply any of the data that's being collected. Where do you want to store it? What do you want to do with this information? And then based on the results of different respondents, what kind of automation do you want to happen that you can actually use the information and move forward to touch base, to send them content, to notify your team, and just that will help you when you're building out the survey. Second, you would go into your account setup. So you'd create your user-defined fields that would house these responses. You'll also create the workflows and triggers that will happen based on the responses. And then when it comes to sending your survey, you can either embed it into a website. You have the anonymous link to share. Otherwise, you can embed it into an email to start that tracking and make sure it directly connects to a contact. And then with the customization, you can add placeholders into either the emails or the survey itself. Add logic to make sure that only the relevant questions are being sent or asked of the contact. You can set up scoring points And that way it would allow you to customize that thank URL and customize that follow-up for the contact. You can then track the survey links clicked. So this can be done either within that link library that you can find and set up the automation. You can also send the contact along a journey. And within that journey, you would have the email with a link, and they can move through the journey if they clicked on your previous email. Now, let us know if you have questions about that. We'll be happy to help guide you through that. And then within the email tracking section of your account, so within the communicate track email section, you can see an overview of how many contacts read your email, clicked on your link, and engaged with that broadcast that you sent out. And then lastly, you can add the automation around your engagement. So assigning the lead scoring points, triggering your workflows, or customizing your URLs would just help with making sure that the customer experience while taking your survey would want them to kind of help and take another survey in the future when they feel like it was easy to do and they didn't mind, taking the survey. So adding all these touch points would really just help them continue taking your surveys and generating that feedback for your team. Thank you for sitting through the surveys and automation. I know it was pretty short and sweet. So if you do have any questions, please add them into the question box, otherwise the chat section here, and I'll be happy to kind of dive into any individual questions that you have. Otherwise, if you are watching this a bit later, you can always just email us at support@greenrope and we can meet with you to talk about this further and how it applies to your specific survey that you're building. So I see there's a couple questions within the QA box. Unfortunately, I have to unshare so I can actually open that box. So let's. All right, firstly, hi Lydia, thank you. So her question here is, if I reuse a survey question in a second survey, will I be able to separate the results by survey or the results for that question lumped together? Within the survey, if you go down, each individual survey will show you the, it's a great question. Within the survey itself, if you go into the individual survey and you scroll down and you see the results, that's going to be based on that specific survey. The individual survey results, I don't believe there's a section. I can share you my screen and we can dive into that together. It doesn't show that each individual survey you can see. Hold on, let me see my screen here. And I can show you what I'm referring to. So if you go into the survey questions, right, you can click on the survey and you can see for this question overall. So depending on wherever they answer this question, this will show everything. Just because the individual questions are then plugged into the actual survey. So the questions will probably show you more because it shows you the overall responses to this question. Versus if you go into the survey and you go down to the results, it's going to show you less because it's only depending on the contacts that have filled out this survey question within the survey. What I'll do is I'll make sure I'll double check with the team and get back to you on that. But that's kind of how it's set up here. So the questions itself will show you all the results. And then inside the survey will be the results connected to this survey itself. Can you show us what it looks like when a score is embedded into the contact record from Travis? So what you would want to do is you would have a user field within here. You can add this to be, survey results. Since it's not going to be a check one or multiple, it would be an open text or a short text actually, which would just be this mini section here. For example. So now you would have your new user field. Within the survey itself, you will then go into the survey and you would enter the score in, you would connect it into that field that we just created. So that field user 81. Since no one has filled out my survey yet, it's not going to populate, but if you go into a contact record, you can always structure this, but it will show you here and it should say, 89 if you were to get that, or 24 or whatever you got here. And that's how it would display within the contact record. Michael, you have a great question. Is it possible to use an image along with the possible options for a question rather than number them sequentially? So let's go back into the survey so we can talk about that one here. So within the question itself, you're looking to have the question, and then instead of the answer, you wanted to insert an image. At the moment, I don't believe there is one, but I think that's a really great suggestion. I can bring that up to the team and see if you have an option that we might be able to have this toolbox, see how you can add an image here. What you could do inside the question box, you could always add a couple images here. So you can add a picture saying A, B, C, D, E. And then within the answer, they can select A, B, C, D, or E. I know our team had done that recently. We were deciding on a banner for our new, pop-up display. We had another link with all the different images and options. And then the survey link at the bottom told us to rank the order of which one we preferred. And so we went into here, we said the rank order, and I need to save this to show you, but it would show, you can rank them 1 to 7 or based on how many options that you had. And if you have any questions, here's a little question icon that shows you the preference, with 1 being the best option here. So right now, there's not a way that you can add an image associated with the rank order, but you could insert it into the question or have an alternative link that would show them that. And Travis, you're welcome. I'm glad that answered your question. And then Michael, these are the rank orders, and they would have a number that they would associate. So to be 1 through as many, instead of A, B, C, D, it would be 1, 2, 3 in this case, and they could rank those orders. And then Annie, your question, is there an option to submit a recording to MP3? The survey itself is more asking them questions. They aren't, currently, I don't believe that they can kind of upload a file. But let's say you are working within our LMS, which would be here, the learning management system. There's an option in there that they can, take the survey or submit their homework, as like we call it. You can call it whatever you want, but you can say submit your MP3 option here. And then what you can do inside the LMS, you can insert the survey. And so you say, hey, take the quiz, which is the survey, upload your MP3, and then before they move to the next module, it can notify you once those 2 are done. You can approve it and move them to the next module. Annie, you're welcome. I can send you more information on that as well if you'd like to, or we can walk through that when you're at that point. I don't mind as well. And then Vicky, you had a question here. Oh, actually more just a comment, which is great. So it looks like you can add emojis into the options instead of images. So Michael, that might be something you could look into. You can insert emojis into the question boxes, you know, maybe smiley faces or different, I don't know, options into there. But also bring it up to the team and see if there's an option that we can kind of, you know, upload files from your media library, like images from your media library into there. But currently that's not an option yet. Okay, well, thank you everybody. I know there's a lot going on here. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to just reach out to our team. You know, we're happy to help and kind of see what would be the best option for your survey. And then Michael, I'll follow up with you as well regarding the emojis and images, as well as I kind of look into it and see what would be the best option for that. So I'm just taking a note here and I'll get back to you on that as soon as I can. All right, thank you everybody for your time. I really appreciate you spending this time with me to learn about the surveys and automation. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.